Alright everyone, now it's time to talk about how Donald Trump is showing leadership while Joe Biden, who's a steward so it's not exactly confusing why, lacks it entirely. His administration with regards to the Russia and Ukraine policy, basically the idea is just throw money and weapons into Ukraine and hope for the best. It exacerbates the situation, but it doesn't really lead to any real solid attempt to end the conflict that's going on there. In fact, U.S. liberals at this point 9 times out of 10 seem to support continuing the conflict. They're hoping for more death. As long as a bunch of Russian soldiers are dying, they don't care that bombs are dropping around Ukrainian civilians. It's a goddamn 180 from the sort of liberals that I used to encounter back during the Bush administration. I think we know why, though. Biden happens to be president. It's sort of like under Obama. Drone strikes were perfectly fine. They were the more friendly, pride flag waving new wave of killing people, and it's out of sight, out of mind. You know, you don't have U.S. soldiers directly in harm's way, so they don't have to see too many CNN reports on all the caskets being brought back. You'll notice that ended the second that Bush left office. Thank goodness he was gone, but, you know, new boss kind of similar to the old boss in that particular sense. Same with spying. AP scandal, ring a bell. Didn't get reported on as widely as some of the things that went on before and after. I wonder why. Trump is showing leadership. Link in the description. Not archived because it's a video clip and you can see it for yourself. Trump is calling for immediate negotiations between Ukraine and Russia, assumingly partially brokered by the United States, which would be, I think, a good idea considering the investment we've made in the conflict so far, to try to end the fighting there. Now, what end result that happens, assuming that you have negotiations that hold, is anyone's guess. It could be involving Russian withdrawal in part or in whole. Ukraine could cede territory in order to simply join NATO. We don't know what form it would take. I see people telling online, well, Donald Trump, see, look, he's an agent of Vladimir Putin. He's trying to run cover for the Russians. He's trying to give them Crimea or Donbass or something. Since when is going in with negotiating skills and attempting to keep people from dying, since when is that apologism for one of the sides that happens to be engaged directly in that conflict? The U.S. is constantly attempting to broker peace when fighting breaks out, unless the United States has caused it in the first place. I wonder why there's no brokering going on right now. Trump being dogpiled by liberals for being pro-Russia by saying that he wants less Ukrainians to be bombed. It's very interesting how the liberal cognitive dissonance now has them lapping at the fucking boot, the jackboot of the war pigs. It's something that wouldn't have happened 15 years ago, but I digress. The Biden administration notably has shown virtually no interest in any form of negotiations with the Russians. You get condemnation, you get sanctions, you get arms sales to Ukraine, you get literally everything other than an attempt to stop the conflict. Has anybody noticed that over the last few months you've seen not one maneuver from the United States towards Russia to actually get them back to the bargaining table? Originally, when the war first broke out, we'll start before that, a few weeks before, tanks and shit are drawing up on the border. Biden effectively is out to lunch, and the only thing that he has to say is, don't you dare do it. And of course the Russians did it. Macron went over to go and talk to Vladimir Putin. Biden doesn't have time, though. He spends 1 out of every 3 days of his presidency in Delaware. He's not doing anything. And the people behind the scenes that would actually be willing to conduct diplomacy aren't really willing at all. They don't want a diplomatic resolution here because it's making them a lot of money. It's effectively nothing more than a grift at this point. The Russians are making money off the conflict. The U.S. is making money off the conflict. Europe is screwed. You know, you look at the energy prices here. It's getting dire for some people. I don't think that Biden gives a shit about that either. If anyone thinks he gives a shit about any U.S. allies, you've got another thing coming. We could secure Taiwan today if we just encourage them to enact a Marshall Society Switzerland style, but I don't see the anti-gun Biden administration clamoring for that. Leaving it an open question allows them to do more defense spending. If you have an ally that's vulnerable, it can be lucrative. It can advance your technology faster, and then you can sell them those weapons that you design. That's basically the war grift. War is a racket, and we see it no better than here. Trump gets dogpiled for suggesting, hey, maybe it's possible for us to end this in some sort of amicable way so that you have a lasting peace finally and people aren't fucking shelling each other every goddamn day. The U.S. would be in a position to broker such a thing if Trump were in office. I have no doubt that he would. He would have threatened Vladimir Putin up front, and he would have chuffed at him while the fighting rains, and he would have upped the ante, and at some point he would have said, come to the goddamn bargaining table, and Putin would be in D.C. right now talking to Donald Trump. Biden, though, lacks the finesse to do this, and the other people that are in his administration lack any desire to do so. What you need right now in the U.S. is a chief executive capable of analyzing the situation fairly. There's another problem. Biden's son has done hefty business in that part of the world, and probably Biden has entanglements there. There could be another reason why he's taking a hands-off approach in every way except for sending tens of billions of dollars in weapons and aid money to the Ukrainians. And of course, I say this, I condemn Russia invading Ukraine. I don't understand why these two countries are incapable of getting along with one another. It makes absolutely no sense. Yes, I know, Ukraine's not supposed to join NATO. They had an agreement. It's a sovereign nation. Invading a sovereign nation because they decide to join an alliance that you are technically neutral towards, you're not at war with NATO, sorry, that's not a compelling reason to kill a bunch of people and then further beyond that attempt to annex part of their country. That's beyond the pale. That doesn't make Zelensky a saint. It doesn't make him a heroic figure. It doesn't make him any less corrupt than even the Western media cast him as being for years before this began. They all of a sudden decided that he was a great guy and they wanted to give him heavy weapons. Meanwhile, the same people clamoring for that want to disarm Americans. That's the other part, the stark hypocrisy that you see from the current administration, the Biden stewardship, is abysmal. We've never seen, I think, a presidency before, actually, in U.S. history that's this dysfunctional. Originally, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. It took the entire first year of dysfunction from the Biden admin for me to finally buckle and say, okay, yeah, this is really, really bad. He really is worse than the other presidents that recently, and it's not just recency bias. I had to get past that because I'm like, well, yeah, but he's the dude fucking around currently. So when a person is fucking around yesterday, it's more meaningful than they fucked around 20 years ago, so to speak. A lot of people don't understand. Their own minds are toyed with by recency bias quite frequently. Finally, though, before last year was up, I had to admit, yeah, Joe Biden really is that dysfunctional. Trump shines like a goddamn diamond in comparison to virtually anything that Joe Biden has done. Even Trump's failures were better than some of Biden's so-called successes. Trump is showing leadership. An attempt to negotiate it could fall through. You go in and you negotiate, the Russians tell you to fuck yourself. At least you tried. There's no attempt from the Biden administration. The closest that they come is issuing strongly worded letters and tweets. That's all they're doing. So much. I was told that Trump was the Twitterer-in-chief, and that was a big problem. What the fuck has the Biden administration done with regards to all the dead civilians in Ukraine right now? But fuck nothing. That's about all. Peace out.